Take a slow breath with me, not a forced one, not a rushed one, just the kind of breath you take when you finally sit down after a long day and let your shoulders fall. You have carried so much into this moment, worries that begin before the sun rises, thoughts that return when the world grows quiet, questions about whether you are doing enough, becoming enough, surviving well enough. There is a tiredness that doesn't live in the body alone, but in the mind that never seems to rest. And if we're honest, part of you has wondered whether life will ever truly settle, or if it will always feel like something you're chasing, something just out of reach. This is not a failure, this is not weakness, this is the human condition. The Stoics understood this deeply. Long before modern noise, before constant updates and endless comparisons, they observed the same restless mind, the same longing for certainty, the same fear of loss. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not because he was calm by nature, but because he needed reminding. Seneca spoke about anxiety, not as a philosopher above life, but as a man inside it. And what they discovered was not how to control life, but how to stop being controlled by it. As we move into 2026, the world will not suddenly become softer. Expectations will not disappear. Uncertainty will not ask for permission before entering your day. But there is a quieter revolution available to you, one that begins the moment you stop worrying about how everything will turn out and start focusing on how you will stand within whatever comes. Stoic truth begins here, not with external change, but with inner order. There is a strange relief that arrives when you realize that most of what exhausts you is not what happens, but your resistance to it. The mind argues with reality. It replays conversations. It imagines disasters that never arrive. It clings to outcomes as if peace were waiting on the other side of control. But peace does not live there. It never has. Marcus Aurelius once reflected that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This wasn't meant to dismiss pain, but to free us from unnecessary weight. When you notice how much of your fear lives in the future, you begin to see how rarely it is needed in the present. Stoicism does not ask you to become cold or indifferent. It asks you to become clear about what belongs to you and what does not. Your effort belongs to you. Your character belongs to you. Your response belongs to you. Your outcomes, opinions, timing, and the behavior of others do not. When this truth settles in, something loosens inside you. You stop chasing approval like oxygen. You stop fearing rejection as if it were death. You stop bargaining with life for guarantees it was never meant to give. Instead, you begin to build a steady center. Think of a lighthouse standing through storms. It does not argue with the waves. It does not try to calm the sea. It simply remains rooted, doing what it was built to do. This is Stoic strength, quiet, reliable, unmoved by chaos, not because chaos disappears, but because the foundation is strong. Seneca warned that a person who depends on external comfort will always be anxious, because external things are fragile. Wealth can vanish, praise can turn, plans can collapse. But a person who depends on inner discipline carries stability wherever they go. They are never homeless because their home is within. In 2026, many people will try to move faster, achieve more, prove themselves louder. But Stoicism whispers a different path. Slow down your reaction, simplify your needs, strengthen your mind. What you build inwardly cannot be taken from you. There is courage in restraint. There is power in patience. There is dignity in emotional discipline. You do not need to respond to every provocation. You do not need to explain yourself to every misunderstanding. You do not need to fight every battle that invites you. Some victories come from refusal, from silence, from choosing peace over performance. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would encounter difficult people, selfish people, arrogant people, not to grow bitter, but to prepare his mind. Expectation is armor. When you stop being surprised by human flaws, you stop letting them disturb your soul. This is where worrying begins to lose its grip. Worry assumes that fear is preparation, but fear only drains. Preparation is calm attention. Preparation is asking, what is required of me now, and doing only that, no more, no less. When you live this way, life begins to work out, not because it becomes perfect, but because you become steady. You stop rushing to the future for relief. You stop dragging the past into the present. You stand fully here, and here, in this moment, you are enough. You may not have everything figured out. You may still feel uncertain, but you are breathing. You are aware. You are capable of choosing your response. That is already strength. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion. It is about refusing to be ruled by it. You feel sadness, but you do not collapse into it. You feel anger, but you do not hand it the steering wheel. You feel fear, but you do not let it write the story of your life. This is emotional discipline, not hardness but mastery. The modern world teaches us to react instantly. Stoicism teaches us to pause, and in that pause, freedom appears. You are allowed to take your time becoming. You are allowed to grow quietly. You are allowed to stand alone if needed, because standing alone is often how integrity is preserved. Seneca wrote that a wise person is self-sufficient, not because they reject others, but because they are not dependent on them for peace. This kind of independence is not isolation, it is self-respect. When you respect yourself, you stop abandoning yourself for approval. When you respect yourself, you stop tolerating what erodes your spirit. When you respect yourself, you move differently, and life responds to that difference, not always immediately, not always dramatically, but steadily. You begin to notice that fewer things shake you, that setbacks don't feel like personal failures, that silence no longer frightens you, that being misunderstood no longer feels like a threat to your worth. This is the quiet success Stoicism offers, and before we go further, let us pause gently. If this video is creating an inner change within you, gently hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment "I will follow this in my life," and share this message with others who may need it. Now, take another slow breath, because what comes next is where Stoic wisdom deepens. When you stop worrying, not because life is safe, but because you are grounded, you begin to see a new truth, one that many never discover, that resilience is not built in comfort, but in calm acceptance, that life doesn't ask you to be fearless, only faithful to your principles, that even when you stand alone, you are not weak, you are aligned. Stay with that breath, not deeper, just slower, as if you are giving your nervous system permission to soften. When people speak about life working out, they often mean comfort, certainty, ease, but the Stoics meant something far more durable. They meant inner alignment. They meant a life that does not fall apart when circumstances do, a mind that remains intact even when plans dissolve. This is where the second Stoic truth quietly reveals itself. Life becomes lighter when you stop demanding that it obey your expectations. Most suffering is born from one sentence we repeat unconsciously: "This should not be happening." When reality disagrees with that sentence, tension begins. The mind tightens, the heart resists. We exhaust ourselves fighting what already exists. Seneca observed that fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. This was not a call to passivity. It was an invitation to cooperation with reality, to stop wasting energy resisting what cannot be changed and redirect that energy toward what can be shaped: your conduct, your perspective, your inner posture. Acceptance in Stoicism is not surrender, it is strategic peace. Imagine rowing a boat upstream against a powerful current. You strain, you tire, you curse the water, yet the river does not respond. Now imagine turning the boat, not to give up your journey, but to move with the flow toward a different route. The effort lessens, progress becomes possible again. This is how acceptance works. In 2026, there will be moments when doors close without explanation, when people misunderstand your intentions, when effort is not rewarded immediately. The Stoic does not collapse into bitterness. They adjust their grip. They release what they cannot control and double down on what they can. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the universe is change and life is opinion. Events are neutral until we assign meaning. This is not denial of pain, it is clarity about its source. Two people can experience the same loss and suffer differently, not because the loss differs, but because the story they tell themselves does. You cannot always choose what happens, but you always choose the lens through which you see it. When you stop worrying, you stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios that steal today's strength. You begin to treat the future with humility, not arrogance disguised as planning, but respect for uncertainty. You prepare your character, not your predictions. This is where patience becomes a form of power. Patience is often mistaken for weakness, but it is one of the strongest Stoic virtues. It means you are not rushed by fear. You do not demand instant clarity. You allow life to unfold without forcing premature conclusions. Seneca wrote that time reveals truth. The impatient mind wants answers now. The disciplined mind trusts process, and trust in process creates emotional stability. When you stop worrying about timelines, you stop pressuring yourself to become someone overnight. Growth becomes organic, learning becomes deeper, mistakes become teachers instead of verdicts. There is dignity in moving at the speed of understanding. Stoicism teaches that character is built in moments no one applauds, in restraint, in choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, in continuing without reassurance. This is where self-respect forms. Self-respect is not loud confidence. It is quiet consistency. It is knowing that even if no one sees your effort, it still matters because you see it. This is crucial in a world addicted to validation. When approval becomes your compass, anxiety becomes your shadow. You measure yourself through others' eyes. You bend to expectations that change without warning. The Stoic steps out of this trap. They anchor worth internally. Marcus Aurelius asked himself a simple question: is this essential? Not every opinion deserves attention. Not every criticism deserves response. Not every desire deserves pursuit. When you filter life through what is essential, mental clutter dissolves. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop defending your peace. You stop chasing what costs too much of your soul. This is emotional discipline in action. Discipline is not punishment. It is protection. It protects your energy, your focus, your integrity. When emotions surge, discipline creates space between impulse and action. In that space, wisdom lives. The Stoics did not suppress emotion, they trained it. Like a powerful horse guided by steady hands, emotion becomes fuel, not fire. Anger becomes boundary setting, sadness becomes depth, fear becomes awareness, but none of them become rulers. When you live this way, resilience grows quietly. Not the dramatic kind that boasts survival, but the grounded kind that simply continues. You bend without breaking. You adapt without losing yourself. Resilience is built by repeated acceptance of difficulty without resentment. In 2026, resilience will matter more than speed. Those who endure will not be the loudest or the fastest, but the most centered. Those who can lose without becoming bitter, who can wait without becoming desperate, who can stand alone without becoming rigid. Standing alone is a Stoic skill, not because isolation is ideal, but because conformity without integrity is a slow betrayal of self. There will be moments when following the crowd means abandoning your values. The Stoic chooses solitude over self-betrayal. Seneca wrote that it is better to be out of harmony with the crowd than with yourself. That sentence alone can reshape a life. When you honor your principles even quietly, you build an inner fortress. Opinions bounce off, trends pass, pressure fades. What remains is a deep sense of alignment, and alignment creates calm. This calm does not mean life becomes easy. It means difficulty no longer feels personal. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is required of me now?" This shift is everything. It turns obstacles into exercises. It turns delays into training. It turns solitude into clarity. Life begins to work out, not because it bends to your will, but because your will becomes refined. Before we continue, let us pause again, gently, without rush. If this video is creating an inner change within you, gently hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment "I will follow this in my life," and share this message with others who may need it. Now return to your breath, because the next truth cuts even deeper. When you stop worrying, you begin to realize that strength is not loud control, but quiet readiness, that you do not need to predict the storm to survive it. You only need to trust the foundation you are building within. and that foundation is not built through certainty, but through character. Let the silence after that breath linger for a moment, not empty, just open. There is a third Stoic truth that begins to surface once you stop worrying, and it is this: true strength is revealed when you no longer need life to reassure you. Most people seek constant confirmation that they are on the right path. Signs, validation, certainty. They look outward again and again, asking the world to tell them who they are and whether they are safe. But the Stoics discovered something quietly radical. A person who depends on reassurance will never feel secure, because reassurance is temporary and uncertainty is permanent. Marcus Aurelius wrote his thoughts not for others, but for himself. He did not assume wisdom stayed with him automatically. He returned to it daily. This tells us something important. Strength is not a permanent state. It is a practice. In modern life, we are taught to chase confidence as a feeling. Stoicism teaches confidence as behavior. You act according to principle, even when you feel uncertain. You do the right thing even when you feel afraid. Over time, the feeling follows the action, not the other way around. When you stop worrying, you stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. This is where courage quietly enters the picture. Not dramatic courage, not heroic speeches, but the courage to remain steady when there is no applause, to stay honest when shortcuts are tempting, to continue when progress feels invisible. Seneca warned that we suffer not because life is hard, but because we expect it to be easy. When you release the expectation of ease, difficulty stops feeling like betrayal. It becomes part of the agreement. You stop asking life to spare you. You start asking yourself to meet it well. This changes everything. In 2026, there will be moments when you feel behind, when others seem to move faster, achieve more, receive recognition sooner. Comparison is one of the most subtle forms of worry. It whispers that your timeline is wrong, that your pace is a failure. Stoicism dissolves this illusion. The Stoic understands that nature does not rush, yet everything unfolds. Trees do not compete with each other. Seasons do not apologize for their timing. Each process has its own rhythm. When you stop comparing, you reclaim your energy. Comparison steals attention from your own path and hands it to someone else's. The Stoic gently pulls attention back, not out of arrogance, but out of responsibility. You are responsible for your character, not someone else's highlight reel. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the best revenge is not to be like the one who wronged you. This applies beyond conflict. The best response to pressure, envy, or doubt is not imitation, but integrity. Integrity is alignment between your values and your actions, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. This is where inner strength deepens. When you live by principle, you begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, worry loosens its grip. You no longer need to monitor every outcome because you know that whatever happens, you will respond with dignity. Dignity is not pride. It is composure under pressure. The Stoics believed that a calm mind is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of order. Order within thought, order within desire, order within response. Most anxiety comes from disorder. Too many desires pulling in different directions. Too many fears competing for attention. Stoicism simplifies the inner world. You begin to ask fewer questions, but better ones. Is this within my control? Is this essential? Is this aligned with my values? If the answer is no, you let go. Letting go is not loss, it is refinement. As you refine, resilience becomes quieter but stronger. You stop dramatizing setbacks. You stop narrating your life as a tragedy in progress. You meet challenges without adding unnecessary commentary. Seneca wrote that we often exaggerate our troubles and underestimate our strength. Stoicism corrects this imbalance. You are stronger than your fear suggests, more capable than your doubt allows, more resilient than your past pain implies, but you only discover this by standing still long enough to see it. Worry keeps you moving frantically. Stoicism invites you to stand, observe, and choose. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind has the power to withdraw into itself and find calm at any moment. This was not poetry, it was instruction. He ruled an empire while surrounded by war, illness, and betrayal, yet he returned again and again to the same reminder: nothing outside your mind can disturb it without your consent. This is not denial of difficulty, it is clarity about authority. When you stop worrying, you stop giving the future authority over your present state. You stop lending tomorrow's uncertainty the power to ruin today's steadiness. This is where emotional discipline matures into emotional freedom. Freedom does not mean you feel good all the time. It means your emotions no longer control your behavior. The Stoics understood that emotions are natural signals, not commands. Fear signals risk. Anger signals injustice. Sadness signals loss. But signals are meant to be interpreted, not obeyed blindly. When you obey every emotion, you live reactively. When you interpret them with reason, you live deliberately. This is the heart of Stoic resilience. Resilience is not endurance through gritted teeth. It is flexibility without self-betrayal. It is the ability to experience discomfort without letting it define you. In 2026, resilience will not look like endless hustle. It will look like emotional containment, the ability to experience pressure without panic, to face uncertainty without paralysis, to endure loneliness without desperation. This kind of resilience is quiet. Others may not notice it, but it will change how life feels inside you. Seneca warned that a person who fears loss has already lost peace. When you worry constantly about what might be taken from you, you live in a state of permanent deprivation. Stoicism offers a different approach. Appreciate what you have without clinging to it. This sounds subtle, but it is revolutionary. You enjoy relationships without trying to own them. You enjoy success without letting it define you. You enjoy stability without assuming it is permanent. By doing this, you suffer less when change arrives. This is not pessimism, it is realism with grace. The Stoics practiced what we might call mental preparedness. They imagined loss not to create fear, but to reduce shock. When you understand that nothing external is guaranteed, you stop building your identity on fragile ground. Your worth becomes internal. Your stability becomes internal. Your peace becomes portable. This is independence at its deepest level. Independence does not mean rejecting help or connection. It means you are not emotionally undone when circumstances shift. You do not collapse when support is removed. You do not panic when certainty dissolves. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he could lose everything except his character, and even that, only if he chose to abandon it. This is the ultimate Stoic power, the refusal to give away your inner authority. When you stop worrying, you reclaim that authority. You stop scanning for threats constantly. You stop living as if disaster is imminent. You stop exhausting yourself with vigilance. Instead, you become attentive without being anxious, aware without being tense, prepared without being afraid. This state allows patience to deepen even further. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust in your ability to respond when the moment arrives. You do not need to solve everything now. You do not need to understand everything immediately. Life unfolds in layers. Stoicism teaches you to respect that layering. When answers are not available, you wait without resentment. When clarity is delayed, you continue without bitterness. This patience preserves your energy, and energy, when protected, becomes strength. Self-respect grows naturally here. You stop forcing yourself into situations that violate your values. You stop explaining your boundaries excessively. You stop apologizing for needing space, time, or quiet. The Stoic does not announce their strength. They demonstrate it through consistency. You begin to notice that some people will not understand your calm. They may mistake it for indifference. They may try to provoke a reaction, but you are no longer interested in proving anything. Seneca wrote that a person who has found inner peace is beyond insult, not because words cannot hurt, but because they no longer dictate behavior. This is where courage takes a refined form. Courage is not confrontation, it is composure. It is the courage to remain silent when silence is wiser, the courage to walk away when ego wants to engage, the courage to stand alone when integrity demands it. Standing alone is never easy, but it is often necessary. In moments when the crowd moves in a direction that feels wrong to your conscience, Stoicism gives you the strength to pause, to question, to refuse. You may feel isolated briefly, but that isolation protects something precious, your alignment. Alignment creates peace that no agreement can replace. As you move through 2026, there will be moments when choosing calm feels like choosing invisibility. But calm is not absence, it is presence without noise. And from that calm, clarity grows. Before we continue, let us pause once more, gently, without urgency. If this video is creating an inner change within you, gently hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment "I will follow this in my life," and share this message with others who may need it. Now return to your breath again, because the final truth brings everything together. When you stop worrying, not because you have answers, but because you trust your inner compass, you begin to live from a place of grounded courage. A courage that does not shout, but endures. A courage that does not rush, but remains. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that if something is right, it does not matter whether it is recognized. Right action carries its own reward. This frees you from the burden of constant evaluation. You stop asking, "Is this working yet?" You start asking, "Is this honest?" And honesty steadies the soul. Life begins to feel less like a test you must pass, and more like a path you must walk. Some days are steep, some days are quiet, but each step is yours. Stoicism teaches you to walk without resentment. Resentment is heavy. It keeps you tied to what should have been. Acceptance releases that weight. You do not excuse harm. You do not deny injustice, but you refuse to let bitterness become your identity. Seneca wrote that anger, when held too long, becomes a poison you drink hoping someone else will suffer. Stoicism invites you to put the cup down. Forgiveness, in this sense, is not about others. It is about freeing your own nervous system from endless tension. You can walk away from what disrespects your peace without explaining yourself. You can wait without despair. You can begin again without shame. This is independence in its truest form, not needing external permission to live with integrity. As the Stoics understood, life is not short because of time, but because of distraction. When you reclaim your attention from worry, you reclaim your life. You notice simple things again: the rhythm of breath, the clarity of morning light, the satisfaction of acting rightly. These moments are not small, they are the substance of a well-lived life. Before we come to the close, let us pause one final time, gently, without urgency. If this video is creating an inner change within you, gently hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment "I will follow this in my life," and share this message with others who may need it. Now let us end as we began, slowly, calmly, present, strong without becoming rigid, independent without becoming isolated. You carry your peace with you, and that peace does not depend on the year, the economy, the opinions of others, or the certainty of outcomes. It depends only on your commitment to live with clarity, courage, and self-respect. That commitment is always available to you, in this moment, with this breath. And when you live from that place, worry loses its voice, and life, just as it is, becomes enough.